My name's Henry. I'm 42. Even when I thought nobody did, God still saw me. I didn't plan on talking tonight. I was just walking down Fremont Street, the lights flashing, people laughing, the smell of fried food and cigarettes mixing in the air, and for some reason, I felt this pull, like a hand on my shoulder that wasn't there.
It wasn't the kind of night you'd expect someone like me to be talking about Jesus. I mean, look at me, hoodie. Backpack that smells like rain and dirt, pockets empty. I've been sleeping behind that old casino for weeks. But tonight feels different. I don't even know if anyone's gonna watch this. But if you do, maybe this ain't an accident.
You see, I wasn't always like this. I had a job once, construction mostly. Then warehouse work. A wife for a while too. Her name was Emily. We used to laugh at little things, how the coffee maker always sputtered, like it was dying, or how I could never fold laundry, right? But I messed that up. I messed up everything.
Drinking. That's how it started. Just a few after work, then a few more. I'd tell myself I deserved it, that it helped me unwind. But what it really did was unbuild me, piece by piece. One night, I came home late, angry, saying things I didn't mean. She cried, and I remember thinking I was the victim. That's how blind I was.
A year later, she packed her bags, left a note on the counter, and said she couldn't keep watching me destroy myself. And she was right. That was 5 years ago. Since then, I've slept in parks, under bridges, in shelters when there's space. You start to disappear after a while. People walk by and look through you. Some nights, I'd stare up at the city lights and think, does anyone even see me anymore? But that question, it didn't stay unanswered. It was about 3 months ago. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. My body was shaking so bad from withdrawal. I thought my heart was going to give out right there on the sidewalk. I sat behind a dumpster on Fremont thinking, this is it. This is where it ends.
And I meant it. But then something happened. I don't know how to explain it without sounding crazy, but the air around me went quiet, like everything just stopped. Even the traffic, even my thoughts. And there, in that stillness, I saw this light. Not from the street lamps, not from any sign, but like it was coming from inside me. And yet all around me at the same time. And I heard a voice.
Not with my ears, but deeper, in that place where you just know it's real. It said, I still see you. That's all. 3 words, but it broke something in me, or maybe it fixed something that had been broken all along. I remember crying so hard I couldn't breathe. My body hurt from it. I hadn't cried like that since I was a kid. I tried to say something back, but all that came out was, why? And then I heard it again. Not the same way, but as a feeling that flooded through me because I never stopped. There's a verse that says, even the darkness is not dark to you, the night is as bright as the day. Psalm 139-12. That was the first time in years I felt like I wasn't invisible, like maybe all those nights I wanted to die. Someone was there, watching, waiting. Since then, it's been different, not easier. No, life out here doesn't suddenly get easy, but different. I stopped drinking. Cold turkey. I still get tempted. Still hear that whisper telling me to just one more time. But that other voice, the one that said I still see you, it's louder now. There's this one night. I remember clearly, maybe a week after that vision. I was sitting on the curb outside a gas station, shivering, when this stranger, an old lady, must have been in her 70s, came up to me with a bag of food, didn't ask questions, didn't look scared. She just said, God told me to give this to you. You ever have one of those moments where you realize God's been chasing you for years, and you're just now turning around? That was mine. I didn't even eat right away. I just sat there staring at that paper bag, shaking, because I knew this wasn't coincidence. This was mercy wearing old shoes and a cardigan. From that day on, I started praying again. Not fancy prayers, just talking. God, I don't know what to say. God, I don't know why you still care. God, please don't leave me. And somehow, he didn't. There were nights I slept in the cold and felt his presence like a blanket over me. Other nights I doubted, wondered if I imagined it all. But every time I'd start to spiral, something small would happen. Someone would smile, a verse would pop into my head, or I'd find a Bible page torn and blown against a fence, like it was left there just for me. One of those pages was from Isaiah 43. It said, when thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee. And man, I've been through some waters, but he was there. He didn't fix everything. He didn't magically give me a house or a job or make the pain disappear overnight. But he gave me something I didn't even know I needed. Peace. I think that's why I'm talking right now, holding this old phone with cracked glass, standing in the noise of this city. Because maybe there's someone watching who feels unseen too. Maybe someone who thinks they've messed up too bad. Listen, you're not invisible, you're not forgotten. If he could find me here with nothing but a broken past and a backpack full of regret, he can find you too. Would you like me to continue the story? I didn't sleep that night. I just kept walking, past the casinos, the street performers, the flickering neon that made the pavement glow like another world. I watched people laughing, holding hands, taking pictures, and for once, I didn't feel angry or jealous. I just kept thinking, they have no idea how close he is. That thought kept circling in my mind. He's closer than they know. The next morning, the city was quiet. The party dies around sunrise in Vegas. Streets littered with cups, wrappers, people passed out on benches. I sat near a little patch of fake grass by a hotel, staring at my reflection in a puddle. I looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, face hollow, but I didn't look alone. There was something in my face I hadn't seen in years, maybe hope. I remember whispering, "All right, God, what do you want me to do?" And I swear, right then, this warmth filled my chest, not from the sun, but from somewhere deeper. And I heard that same quiet voice say, "Tell them what I told you." So that's why I started talking to strangers. At first, it felt crazy. I mean, who wants to hear a homeless man preach outside a souvenir shop? But people stopped. Sometimes just for a second, sometimes longer. I'd tell them, God still sees you. A few would laugh or nod awkwardly, but every once in a while, someone would stop walking. Their eyes would well up. It's strange. You think you're the one who needs saving, and then God starts using you to save others. One night, I met this guy named Carlos. He was sitting against the wall, crying. I could smell the alcohol from 10 feet away. He told me he lost everything. Job, wife, kids, because of gambling. I just sat beside him and said, "You're not alone. I've been there." He didn't answer. But after a while, he whispered, "Then why do you still believe?" And I said, "Because I stopped looking at what I lost and started looking at who found me." He stared at me for a long time, then nodded and said, "I used to pray. Maybe I still can." That night, we prayed together right there on the sidewalk. Two broken men in the glow of a casino sign. The irony hit me. All that light, and still the world was so dark. There's this verse, "The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not." John 1-5. After that, I started writing verses on cardboard, not for money, just words. Jesus still saves. You are not forgotten. Grace still walks these streets. People would drop coins in my cup, but that wasn't what mattered. Every once in a while, someone would stop, kneel, and ask me to pray for them. And I didn't have theology or training, just a story, just the memory of that light, that voice. But I learned something. God doesn't need polished people to speak through. He just needs willing ones. One evening, I was standing outside a diner when this man in a suit walked up. He handed me a sandwich and said, "Brother, God told me to bless you." Then he looked at the sign I'd written, "He still sees you," and asked, "You really believe that?" I smiled and said, "I don't just believe it. I'm standing here because of it." He asked if I'd share my story with his church sometime. I laughed and said, "You sure they'd let me in like this?" He smiled back and said, "That's exactly why they need to hear it." A few Sundays later, I walked into that church. People turned and stared. I could feel it. My clothes were old, my hair long, my shoes barely holding together. But when they gave me the mic, I just told the truth. I told them about the dumpster, the voice, the light, the way it broke me down and built me up again. You could have heard a pin drop. Afterwards, a woman came up to me crying. She said her son was addicted, living on the streets too. She asked if I'd pray for him. I did, and as I prayed, I realized maybe that's what all of this was for. Maybe God let me walk through the fire so I could walk others out of it. And you know what? The next week, that same woman came back and said her son had called her for the first time in months. That's God. That's how he works. Quiet, behind the scenes until it all lines up in ways only he could make happen. I still live on the street, still take things one day at a time, but I carry something now that can't be stolen. Peace and purpose. I don't know who's listening right now, but I need you to hear this. You are not too far gone, not for him. People might have given up on you. You might have given up on yourself. But he hasn't. There's this verse that always hits me hard. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. Matthew 12:20. That's me, a bruised reed, a flickering flame, but somehow I'm still burning. And maybe that's why I'm filming this tonight. Not because I have it all figured out, but because I want you to know that grace can reach this far. If you're still breathing, it's not too late. There's something about the desert at night that makes everything feel closer to heaven. The stars don't just sit in the sky, they hang there, heavy, like they're watching. I started spending more nights outside the city, near the edge where the lights fade and the silence grows thick. Out there, it's just me, the wind, and God. Sometimes I'll sit for hours and just listen. Not for voices, not for miracles, but for that stillness. Because that's where I first found him. Not in the noise, but in the quiet that comes after one night. The air was cool and dry. I had a little fire going, just enough to warm my hands. I was thinking about how many times I should have been dead by now. Overdoses, fights, freezing nights. But somehow, every single time, someone pulled me back. And that's when it happened again. I saw the same light I'd seen behind the dumpster months ago. Not blinding, just steady, soft, golden. But this time, it didn't just stay in front of me. It spread across the sand, up the rocks. It was like the night itself was breathing. I closed my eyes, and before I could say anything, I heard that same familiar voice, calm, deep, impossible to describe, but unmistakable. Henry, just my name. But that was enough to undo me.
I said, Lord, I'm still out here. I'm still messed up. And the voice answered, you're not where you were. I opened my eyes and felt tears burn down my face. Because it was true, I wasn't where I was. I wasn't that man who gave up. I wasn't that man waiting to die behind a dumpster.
I was standing broken, but standing in the presence of mercy. Then the light moved, almost like it was pointing, and I saw something I'll never forget. Out there in the desert, just a few yards away, stood a man. I couldn't see his face clearly. It was too bright, but I could feel his eyes, not judging, not pitying, just knowing. I took a step forward and fell to my knees. My body felt weightless. My hands were trembling, and then he spoke again. Go back. I didn't understand. Back where? I asked. To the streets, he said. They're full of the lost. Tell them I walk there too. And just like that, the light faded. The man was gone. The fire crackled again. The wind picked up. It was over. But I knew what he meant. The streets weren't just where I fell. They were where I was found. So I went back. For weeks after, I started walking the strip every night. Not to beg, not to survive, but to look. To find the ones who were where I had been. You can see it in their eyes, the empty stare, the slow shuffle, the way they avoid mirrors. I'd stop and tell them, you don't have to stay lost. Some laughed, some cursed, but a few listened. There was this girl once, maybe 19. She was sitting by a bus stop with her head down, shaking. I could tell she was strung out. I sat beside her without saying anything. After a while, she whispered, I used to go to church. I said, then you already know he hasn't left you. She didn't look up, but I saw tears hit her hands. She said, if he hasn't left me, why does it hurt so bad? I thought about that for a second and said, because healing hurts too? She looked at me then, really looked, and said, you talk like you've been there. And I told her, I still am. We prayed right there as the buses roared past. She didn't say much, just, God, if you still want me, I'm here. That was enough. I don't know what happened to her after that. I hope she's okay. But I do know this. Something shifted in the air that night. It felt holy, like the same kind of quiet that found me that first time. Sometimes I think about that verse. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. Psalm 34-18. That verse lives in me now. Because that's who I am, broken. But seen, one day I was walking past a small chapel near downtown. The doors were open. So I went inside. It was cool and dim, with candles flickering along the wall. I sat down in the back pew and just stared at the cross. And for the first time, I thanked him. Not just for saving me, but for letting me fall far enough to need him. Because I get it now. The streets didn't ruin me. They revealed me. They showed me who I was without God and who I could be with him. That night, I prayed something I hadn't prayed before. I said, God, if you can use my story to reach one person, just one, then don't let it stop here. And I felt that warmth again, that peace that can't be faked. So if you're listening to this, if you've come this far with me, maybe you're that one person. Maybe you're the reason I'm still here, speaking into this phone while the lights of Vegas blur behind me. Maybe God wants you to know he still sees you, he still calls your name, and he's not done. It's strange how peace can live in the middle of chaos. Vegas doesn't sleep. It hums, it glows, it tempts. But when you've heard the voice of God in an alleyway, all that noise turns into background music. Every shout, every laugh, every horn. It just reminds me of how loud the world has to be to drown out the whisper of truth. I started spending my evenings near the busier spots again. Fremont, the corner by the Golden Nugget, sometimes outside the small missions that hand out meals. But it's different now. I don't stand there empty anymore. I stand there planted. You ever see a tree growing through a crack in the concrete? That's how I feel. Every person who walks past me is someone's son or daughter, someone's prayer waiting to be answered. Sometimes I'll just say, hey brother, hey sister, God hasn't forgotten you.
Half the time they ignore me. The other half, they stop and stare. Like something inside them remembers what I said is true. One night, a man named Darren stopped. He was wearing a torn jacket, shaking bad. He looked like I used to. He said, man, I don't even know why I'm talking to you, but I can't take this anymore. I said, then stop taking it, hand it over.
He looked at me confused. Hand what over? And I said, everything that's killing you, just give it up. Right now, I'll stand with you. We stood there in the cold, and I prayed like I've never prayed before. God, this is your son. Take the chains off him like you did for me.
And I kid you not, the man fell to his knees and started sobbing. Right there in the middle of the street. Cars passing. People filming on their phones. Didn't matter. He said, I felt something lift off me. That's when I realized something powerful. The same spirit that met me behind a dumpster is walking these streets every night, searching for the next lost one.
There's a verse that says, the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Luke 19:10. I've seen too much now to doubt it. A few weeks later, I was sitting outside the shelter, writing in a little notebook someone gave me. I started keeping a list of names. Every person I pray for, I call it the found list. Some of the names I never saw again.
Some came back different, brighter. One woman told me she found her daughter after 5 years. Another said she started reading her Bible again because of a single sentence. I said, that's not me, that's him. It still gets hard. Don't let me make it sound easy. Some nights it rains, and the cold gets inside your bones. Some mornings I wake up dizzy, hungry, and tired of the same story.
I'll look at the sky and say, God, I'm worn out. And somehow every single time, something small happens to remind me I'm not alone. A stranger will drop off a coffee. A verse will come to mind. A sunrise will hit the city just right, turning the concrete gold. It's like God saying, I'm still here.
You know, sometimes people ask me, Henry, what did Jesus actually say to you in that vision? And I always tell them the same thing. He didn't give me a list. He gave me a name, mine, and that was enough. Because when the creator of the universe calls you by name, you don't need an explanation. You just know you've been seen.
I started reading the Bible more since then. I carry this little pocket version with me. It's missing a few pages, stained and wrinkled, but it's the only book I've ever read cover to cover, twice, now.
There's a line in Isaiah that says, fear not, for I have redeemed thee, I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. Isaiah 43:1, that one. That's my verse. When I read it, I see myself back in that alley. I see the light. I hear the voice. And I realize that's what this whole thing has been. God walking me from forgotten to found. Sometimes I wonder why he picked me. There are better people, stronger people, cleaner stories. But maybe that's the point. Maybe he chooses the broken, so no one can say it was their strength that did it. The Apostle Paul said, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9, if that's true, and I know it is, then my weakness is his canvas. So yeah, I'm still homeless, but I'm not hopeless. I don't have a roof, but I've got revelation. I don't have comfort, but I've got Christ, and that's more than enough. You know, when you've lived on the streets long enough, you learn to stop waiting for rescue and start living in redemption. And maybe that's what I am now, a redeemed man with a story to tell. That's why I keep walking these streets with my old phone camera, because maybe somewhere out there is another me, staring at the sky, wondering if God's still watching. And if you are that person, I'm telling you now, he is. He's watching, waiting, whispering your name in the middle of your mess. You don't have to clean up to come to him. You come, and he'll do the cleaning. He's not mad at you. He misses you. And when he says, I still see you, he means it. Some nights, I still walk the strip just to remember where grace found me. It's loud, music, laughter, arguments, all of it blending into a kind of restless heartbeat. I pass by the same casino corner where I once begged for change, the same alley where I nearly gave up. And sometimes, just for a second, the memory stings. But then I feel that warmth again, that quiet reminder that the past doesn't own me anymore. I don't walk those streets as a ghost now. I walk them as proof. There's this bench outside a souvenir shop where I like to sit and talk with people. I don't have a sign anymore, just conversation. Sometimes I'll ask, how's your soul doing tonight?
It catches people off guard. They'll laugh or roll their eyes, but sometimes they stop one night. This young guy, maybe mid-20s, sat down next to me. He was holding a guitar, hair falling in his eyes. He said he came to Vegas to make it. I asked, how's that going? And he laughed bitterly.
Said he hadn't eaten in 2 days. So I shared what little I had, half a sandwich and a story. I told him, you know, I used to think making it meant having something in my hands. Now I know it means having someone in my heart. He didn't say much, just stared at the ground. Then he whispered, do you really think God still cares about me? I said, brother, he cared about me when I was drunk, bleeding, and ready to die behind a dumpster. If he cared then, he cares now. We prayed right there on that bench. No music, no lights, no crowd. Just two hungry men in the Holy Spirit.
Afterward, he said, I don't know what this feeling is, but it's heavy and light at the same time. I smiled. That's mercy. It weighs enough to humble you and lifts enough to free you. He laughed through tears and said, I guess I just met God on Fremont Street.
That line stuck with me because that's the truth of it. God doesn't wait inside stained glass walls. He walks among the broken, like Jesus did. The Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. Luke 9:58. Sometimes people tell me I should leave Vegas, go somewhere quieter, start over. But I think this is where I'm supposed to be. This city isn't just lights and noise. It's lost souls looking for something real. And somehow, that's what God made me real. I still wrestle with loneliness, though. There are nights when I sit under the overpass, listening to cars hum overhead, and wonder what my life could have been. Maybe if I'd stayed sober sooner. Maybe if I'd treated Emily right. Maybe if I hadn't pushed everyone away. But then, in the middle of that regret, I'll hear it again. Not in words, but deep inside. I still see you. And I realize that voice isn't about where I was. It's about who I am now. A man redeemed. A man who shouldn't be alive, yet somehow is.
You know, I think that's why Jesus called himself the shepherd, because he doesn't just find the lost, he carries them back home. There's this one night I'll never forget. The city was louder than usual, some concert going on nearby. I was sitting on the curb, praying quietly when a woman walked up.
She looked tired, her eyes swollen from crying. She asked if I was that street preacher guy. I laughed and said, if you mean the guy who can't shut up about Jesus, that's me. She told me she'd seen one of my videos online. Someone must have recorded me talking. She said her brother had been homeless too, and that he died last year.
Then she looked at me and said, you sound like him. We sat there for a while, both crying. I didn't have answers for her, just presence sometimes. That's enough. Before she left, I said, he wasn't forgotten. God doesn't lose track of his kids. She nodded slowly and whispered, then maybe God sent you so I'd know that.
That night, I looked up at the sky and said, Lord, if this is what you meant by go back, then thank you. Because I finally understood my calling isn't to escape the streets, it's to bring heaven into them. That realization changed everything. Now, when I talk to people, I don't tell them to chase religion. I tell them to look for relationship. Talk to God like he's standing right next to them, because he is. I tell them about the nightlight found me, how it wasn't just a vision, it was an invitation. An invitation to stop running, an invitation to live again. You can't make that up, you can't fake peace like that. And if you're still watching, if you've made it this far, I want you to hear me clearly. You don't have to clean yourself up before you come to him. You just have to come. You can cry, curse, question, he can handle it all, he handled me. There's a verse that says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Romans 5-8. He didn't wait for me to be ready. He came right into my mess. That's love. Not the kind that fades when you fail, but the kind that finds you when you're lost. So yeah, my name's Henry. I'm 42, and I once thought nobody saw me, but now I know he always did. And if you're hearing this right now, maybe he's using my voice to tell you the same thing. There's a quiet that comes after surrender, a kind of silence you can't buy, can't fake, can't lose. I wake up with it now. Doesn't matter if I'm sleeping on a bench or on cold concrete, it's there, like a steady hum under my heartbeat. I think it's what Scripture means when it says, the peace of God, which passeth all understanding. Philippians 4-7. It's the kind of peace that doesn't ask for proof. Most mornings I walk before the sun's up. The air's cool and thin, and Vegas feels like it's holding its breath. The billboards flicker, half lit, and the casinos look tired, like they've been pretending too long. That's when I pray for the city, for the lost, for the lonely, for the ones hiding behind bright lights because they're scared of the dark inside them. I pray for the version of me that used to live in those shadows. Sometimes I'll stop by the same alley where I first saw the light. There's nothing holy about the place. Trash cans, graffiti, a flickering street light.
But every time I stand there, it feels like sacred ground.
Because that's where he found me. I'll just stand there with my hands in my pockets and whisper, "Thank you." And sometimes I swear I can feel him whisper back, "I never left." That voice doesn't scare me anymore. It doesn't thunder or shake the sky. It's gentle. Familiar, it sounds like mercy.
You know, I used to ask God for answers. Why me? Why this? Why now? But now I just thank him for the story. Because that's what it is. A story, not a punishment, not an accident, a testimony written in dirt, tears, and grace. And every day, he's still writing. A few months ago, one of the pastors from that small church downtown found me again.
He asked if I'd speak at their outreach night, said they were calling it Stories of Grace. I laughed, told him I didn't have anything fancy to say. He smiled and said, "That's why we want you."
When I stood on that stage, jeans torn, voice trembling, I looked out and saw faces that reminded me of every version of myself. The proud, the broken, the ones trying to look okay. And I said this, "I'm not here because I got cleaned up. I'm here because God didn't give up." That's all it took.
You could feel it. That shift in the air when hearts crack open just enough for light to slip in. People started crying. Some raised their hands. I saw one man in the back drop to his knees. And in that moment, I realized something. This isn't just my redemption story. It's ours. We all fall. We all wander. But grace always goes looking.
After that night, a woman came up to me, early 50s, worn face but kind eyes. She said, "Henry, I've been angry at God for years, but tonight I felt him again." I told her, "He never stopped feeling you." She hugged me and said, "You talk like someone who's seen him." And I smiled, "I have. Maybe not with my eyes, but with my life." I think that's what the vision really was. Not a dream, not a hallucination, but a doorway, a moment where eternity brushed against earth, where God said, "I still see you," and everything changed. Now, whenever I tell the story, I make sure people know I didn't earn this, I didn't deserve this, I just answered.
That's all faith is, really answering when he calls your name, answering when he tells you to go back, answering when he asks you to forgive yourself. Sometimes the hardest part isn't believing in God, it's believing he still believes in you. But he does. He believed in me when nobody else did.
When I didn't even believe I was worth saving. He looked at a man covered in sin, shame, and street dust, and saw a preacher. That's the power of the gospel. It doesn't just save you, it names you. You know, I used to think faith was something you hold, but it's not. It's something that holds you, even when your hands are empty. And if you're listening to this, if you feel forgotten, please hear me. He's closer than your next breath. You don't have to chase him, you just have to stop running. Because grace runs faster. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not that he spoke to me once, but that he still does. In every sunrise, every stranger's kindness, every quiet moment when I remember I'm seen. That's what keeps me going. So tonight, before I close my eyes under the hum of the city, I'll pray the same prayer I pray every night. Lord, don't ever let me forget the alley where you found me. Because I don't want to. That's where everything began and where everything changed. And maybe that's why I'm still here, still breathing, still telling this story, because someone out there needs to hear that the same God who met me behind a dumpster in Las Vegas can meet them right where they are too. No stage required, no spotlight, just surrender. He's waiting, and when he says your name, you'll know it's him.
Sometimes I think about how strange it all is, that my story started in the dirt, but somehow it led to light. If you told me a few years ago that I'd be standing here, sober, speaking about Jesus to people all over the world, I would have laughed in your face. I didn't believe in miracles then, but now I am one. I don't mean that proudly.
I mean it truthfully, because if God can take a man like me, drunk, angry, sleeping behind dumpsters, and turn me into someone who prays for strangers and finds peace in the middle of chaos, then there's nothing he can't do. It's not about what I lost anymore. It's about what I found. And what I found was him. I've walked every kind of road, wide ones full of noise, narrow ones full of pain, and every single one LED back to the same voice that whispered in that alley. I still see you. That voice didn't just save me, it shaped me. Now, when I see someone broken, I don't see what they are, I see what they could be, because that's how he looked at me.
He didn't see a drunk or a failure. He saw a son. There's a verse that says, "For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." Luke 19:10. That's not just a line in a book to me, it's a heartbeat. I live it every day.
The same streets that once felt like a graveyard now feel like a garden. Every face I meet could be a seed waiting for light. Every story could turn into redemption. And if even one person finds God because of mine, then it was all worth it.
I still sleep rough some nights, still get hungry, still feel the weight of memories that try to drag me back. But I've learned something. You can be free before you're comfortable. You can have peace before you have a pillow, because freedom isn't where you are. It's who's with you, and he's with me. He's with you too. Maybe that's why I'm telling this now, because someone out there's listening thinking they're too far gone. You're not. You're one surrender away from everything changing. I know you might not believe me yet, but one day you will. You'll look back on the night you hit rock bottom, and you'll realize that's where he met you. That's where he'll whisper your name, just like he did mine. And when he does, you'll never be the same.
So if you're hearing this, wherever you are, in your car, in your room, maybe even out here on these streets, I want you to say something out loud. Say, God, I'm here. That's all it takes, just honesty. He can work with that. He can rebuild from there. That's what he did with me. My name is Henry. I'm 42.
I was lost, but now I'm found. And if you're still breathing, there's still time for you to be found too. Because he still sees you. He still loves you. And he's not done yet. Let's pray, Father. Thank you. For mercy that reaches the alleys, and for love that doesn't quit, for every person listening who feels forgotten. Remind them you see them.
Whisper their name like you did mine. Let them know it's not too late. Heal what's broken. Restore what's been stolen. Bring them home. In Jesus' name, amen. Different people. One God. Countless stories of his voice still speaking.